Okay. Welcome, everyone. It is Thursday again, and it is time for Kung Fu Corner. So, welcome to people who have tuned in before. We'll be going a little bit further in our exploration of the Maotong-based system. For those of you just tuning in, this will be an interesting little tour through a particular martial art. We've gone through in the past streams that you can go back and look at various basics. Right, we started with our stances, the 5 stances fist. That's not style specific. You'll pretty much find that form ubiquitously throughout all of Chinese martial arts. It was a set. I'd be very interested to figure out who came up with it. But it is one that is now shared by many because it's just a very good set to train stances and to be basics with. So we did that. We moved on to some of the basic body stuff, our Jiaofa stuff. And we went over Dan Pisho, chopping and hanging exercise, single chopping palm. And last week we went over Tantui. At least we went through the first exercise, which of course is part of a set of 10, but it kind of illustrates a lot of things. Now, something that I touched on last week when talking about Tantui is it lays the foundation for the other arts in the Mashatong-based system. Now, there are a lot of things that are brought in there. There's a little bit of Taiji, a little bit of Bagua, there's some Qigong sets, Wanzi Ping stuff, that kind of thing, mantis hands. But the core of the system really comes from Ma Fengtu when he introduced Baji, Fanzi, and Choujiao into the Piqua system that he traditionally did. So we have what we call our big 3, which is Piqua, Baji, Fanzi. And these arts come together to form a kind of central core of the martial system. Now, like I said, Choujiao is another one of these things. Systems. We'll touch on that a little bit, but that sort of deserves its own exploration there. That's pretty much all lower body work, a lot of leg work, lots of kicks, that kind of thing. Okay. So you so as you go through here, when you go through Tongbei, you will do Tantui, and then that will set you up to do some of the other things. And also the Jiaofa too. Now, most of those exercises come directly from Piqua. So Piqua is a natural place to start. You don't necessarily have to start there, but it is a natural place to start. So we'll go over a little bit of Piqua, then we'll kind of touch on Baji, and we'll go into Fanzi as well. And we'll take kind of representative movements out of the Jiaofa to show you something that you can practice to get the flavor and get the feel of these particular systems, these particular methods. Okay, so as always, we will go ahead and ask questions in the live chat. I will get to them as we get to them. I'll be coming back and forth here this time, so we should be all right as far as that goes. So, and of course, I will also keep checking the social media pages for any questions and the like. So there we go. Okay. So let's get to it. So we will start off here just with a couple of little warm-ups. Right. Move the shoulders around. Try to get the joints moving. Remember, when you warm up, you want to be fairly loose, and you don't want to overdo it, right? Okay. All right, so let's start off here. Piqua. Piqua is literally named after two techniques. Pi, to chop, to split, right, like with an axe, and qua, which means to hang. It's essentially an up and down idea. So there's lots of coming in, bringing it up. It's not all attack and defense, right? There's a lot of covering up there too. But it's a very classical looking martial art. It's very beautiful, very pretty to look at. The second set, especially Green Dragon form, is absolutely one of the coolest traditional kung fu sets out there. So there you go. The idea with Piqua is a kind of overall fitness. We have our joint mobility. The form is obviously very similar. It's going to use this a lot. Okay, so for instance, and then it's going to use very low stances, coming up very high. You do a little running. You switch your feet, turn very quickly. We're also going to get that body motion of the tun and to in there. Okay, so there'll be lots of that kind of work. To give you an example, the opening move of the first set, momentum, when we'll just start from here. Okay, so you can see the interesting part. Okay, we come up and there. Now, the first thing that you do, and then it's there. All right. Now, what you're doing, 1, 2, 3, step behind, and then you come up. You see, it travels a lot of space, even just a couple of moves, so I have to keep reorienting, right? Then you're here. Drop down into a low stance, come up, and into the other side. I don't know if you could see that. I'm kind of low, up like that. Notice the arms are out, hands are open. Okay. There are, interestingly enough, there are a couple of different positions for the hands. A lot of times when you see striking arts, this thumb is going to be tucked in like this. Okay. For a lot of grappling, you'll see it open up here like this. Now, I have sort of, through my experimentation only, come up with essentially two safe positions for this thumb. Okay. And that is here, up against the side of the hand. Okay, it could be straight, it can be bent. All right. And like this, open tiger's mouth. So it's like this. Okay. Now the reason for that is because if I push onto this thumb, it's very solid. Okay. That means, so like when I'm coming in here and I'm grabbing, and I've done this before, if you get your thumb like kind of wrapped up in somebody's clothing, you can dislocate it. So that's one thing. And then this one here just kind of keeps it out of the way. right? I've got it up there. This is all nice and tight. There. Now, I've seen some styles will do something like this, right? Kind of this thing here. This is not a very good position for the thumb. It's very, very vulnerable. You hit this, you can dislocate it, you can break it, all kinds of stuff. So as we're doing piquois, we're going to keep our hands open like this. You see? And it kind of stretches out. And that's going to kind of come out from our center. Right? So as we reach out, we're not just reaching out with our hands, we're not just putting our hands out there. We're reaching out through our center so that we get a good, firm frame that we're dealing with. Okay? When I go here and go up, down, come up. Okay? You see that all the time. Later on, this motion, you kind of do it repetitively, right? Here. And, continue on. So that's the kind of idea. Now, technique-wise, what that's doing is that's, first of all, connecting our arms to our body by allowing us to kind of fling them around, right? To really whip your arms around takes a lot of control. And it takes a lot of control right here and right here. Okay? So when you start off slow and easy. Right? Later on, you put the pep in there, right? And you get all of that stuff. But first, you want to get all of your body motion, right? Right? So, hips, shoulders, key to this. Loose, lots of range of motion in the shoulder. Same with the hip. It manifests differently, right? In the shoulder, we're doing these rotations, right? You see that a lot, right? Anytime you're moving that around, that's that whole apparatus. Remember, one arm, two hands. So as I'm going around like this, right? That's there. I'm only thinking about one thing. It's like I got a staff on my shoulders. Do that. Make sure I don't hit this. Yeah. So if you see me kind of reaching down, understand that I've got a ceiling right above me. I might be cheating it a little bit. I'll try to do deeper stances so I don't get so up there. Okay. Anyway, so if I'm down here, right, my arm is fully extended. Okay. When I do this stance even here, my hips are widening. When I go down, another hip-centric type of stance. Being able to move through those, right? That's the whole point. Okay? This is your basic movement. That's the brilliance of this. Okay? It's based on basic movements in biomechanics. When talking about animal styles, because animal styles are a different thing, we'll talk about that in a moment. My teacher is like, well, you're not a monkey. You're not an eagle. You don't have claws, you don't have talons, you don't have fur, you don't have a tail, you don't have any of that, right? Better to fight like a person. But anyway, we'll go into what purpose animal forms did and that here in a second. But the point here is we're trying to expand out. We're using our center. We're getting this. When you do this, and you do this correctly, you do it with a lot of vigor, you will feel, if you do it full force, if you learn the set for full force, you do the first set, full force all the way through, when you get done, you feel like you've been in a fight, in a sparring match, right? The same parts of your body that get fatigued when you're rolling with somebody or when you're going at it, when you're boxing with somebody, get lit up when you do this martial art. Okay? Now, that's anecdotal evidence, but to me, it's a strong indication of that these movements and these exercises are really bolstering the things that will come into play when we are in a confrontational setting. Okay, so that's where I'm placing Piqua. Now this is based on this is just my own things, and I'm basing a lot of this on human movement science. There are traditional places for all of this kind of stuff that you learn when you're inside the school, but those are usually minutia to people who are not part of the organization. So we're just going to skip those. Anyway, Piqua, we've got our movement with our shoulder here, like that, with our hips here, and then by default, the thing that connects them is our back and our spine, right? And as you see, like something like this movement here, coming out there, I'll do it this way, right? There. This roll here, right? That's part of the Piqua movement, okay? It's done a little bit there with these chops, okay? And it's done large there, okay? Butterfly kicks, same movement, you see? Here, then I just do a little hop, okay? So it's a movement that's very, very useful in martial arts. Now the others, technically, there are strikes. Obviously, yes, we are chopping. We're doing that, okay? There's a low thing that's very popular, actually in all of the styles. But what it's really training is from long to short, okay? There's lots of long range stuff here, but there's a lot more stuff where you're coming in, you are scooping them up and you are throwing them. Lots of throws in Piqua, right? So if you take Piqua and you look at it through the lens of judo or shueja, something like that, you're gonna say, oh, look at that, that's that throw, oh, that's that throw, that's that throw, right? So anyway, so that's Piqua in a nutshell. Obviously, grossly oversimplified. All right, so we got a question here from Cyclonus 5. All right, so he's talking about Tantwe. When you turn in the Tantwe, do you wrap from the spine to the front, or push from the front to the spine? Is Baji the same? So, not positive exactly what that means. When you turn, turning is its own motion, right? Now, when you turn, one side of your body contracts, the other side does not. Okay, so that's how a turn is accomplished, physically speaking. When you turn, you want to turn. Okay, you don't necessarily want to push through a turn. Okay, a turn would be, in Chinese terms, a yin motion. Okay, it's something that should be done very loose. Okay, when we do it hard, we're either loose until our shoulders and hips come into alignment, and then they lock, right? And then we release and we follow through, right? Or we keep it locked down, right? So I'm wrestling somebody who's very, very strong. I can pretty much get into clinch and lock my core down and pretty much just be moved around like a chess piece. Right? So more difficult to throw. Now, if you have a movement deficiency in somewhere in your core, then giving a cue to push or pull on either on one or the other side may help you. I cannot see people one-on-one in this setting, so I can't give that type of advice. I can't even really tell you what you should be looking for if you were to do one or the others. All I can really say is try to be as loose as you can when you turn, right? You want to relax. Okay? Now, you mentioned Baji here. Is Baji the same? We're just about to go into Baji, and that's actually a really good segue for it. Because Baji is really the art of power. Okay, so it's very concerned with creating force with the body. Now, this force can be used in a variety of different ways. I've known people who have trained Baji to strike and to box very, very effectively. I've known it to be a good wrestling system. People who do like Hapkido or wrestling and stuff like that have done some Baji. It's helped in that area. So you can apply it in many, many different ways. And this is why I tend to view these segments and these styles in this way, because they are a little bit more universal, a little bit more useful to everybody, even people who are not necessarily within the system. Baji itself is really about core, right, and about connection. Right? So one concept that I bring up a lot is called the Six Harmonies. Now, technically, all the Six Harmonies are your feet to your hands, or really your ankles to your wrists, your knees to your elbows, and your hips to your shoulders, right? And that those want to be moving together to create that. So moving those things together and in sequence gives you that full body power, the adding up of the little joints, throughout the thing. Then you have really this one here, okay? These two are really, really important, okay? So keeping the shoulders and the hips in mind in these things is very, very important. When I turn, again, I'm loose, right? So I'm loose. Then when I come back to square, I'm there. Okay? So the way our core works is it contracts and releases to either let energy pass through it, right? In which case it should be tight and strong, or to dissipate that force as in a turn, right? Or, you can do something, here, even though that's a little bit more hips. All of this kind of is core. I consider the core everything from underneath your rib cage to about the, little underneath the top of your thighs. So the tops of your quads do count as your core, as do your glutes, your back, all this. Now, your core's main job is to keep this steady, but it's also, because we're bipedal, how we move energy from the ground to our hands, right? Baji is very, very concerned with that. The first way is with this thing, okay? You can think about the other ones too, but these are really important. What we're going to do is we reach forward here, we take a step out, and then we boom, right down into kind of a mabu. Right, now this is from stationary. If I'm here, I'm going to step through Now there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, I'm sinking into my stance. So, from here, going down. Okay, you can throw a stomp in there. Right here. This stomping, we do that a lot in Baji. Stuff like that. That's the same strategy that's actually used by power lifters. Okay, power lifters, and I've mentioned this before. Powerlifting shoes have a wooden sole, and that's so no energy gets lost. Right, when they slam their heels into the ground, almost like they're trying to jump. Right, so they're here, boom, they get that. That sends a shock wave through the body. Right, and they can use that to throw that weight to another point, whether it's a clean, or they're coming up to here, right, or boom, coming up to the position. So, this is the same strategies, okay? When my shoulders and hips are aligned, I'm strong. My core can be locked down. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. So that if I'm like this, and I go, I tighten up my core, my whole body gets tight. Okay? Now, if I'm distracted, my hips are going this way, my shoulders going that way, and I try to contract my core, it doesn't even work, right? It doesn't even really want to do that. And that's a good thing, because your spine is so twisted up that if you put any compression on it, it could seriously hurt. Okay, so there's a little bit of a neurological safety right there. Okay, now what I'm going to do though is I'm going to use that as a way to kind of build up momentum. So I'm here, and I'm just going to this locked up position. Right, keeping it right in there. And then when I bring steps into it, I can bring that step and that hip through. To get that through. And that's going to really fulfill that whole body power. Baji itself uses that shock wave a lot, uses that kind of energy, a punctuated energy. It's slower than most, so a lot of people mistake it for Tai Chi. So there you go. You'll see it, right? And so on and so forth. People say it looks like Chen style, that kind of thing. But the point is, you're going from relaxed states, right? Boom! When I relax. Right? Relaxed. Right? I stretch, I feel what's going on in my body. And then you see, whole body up. Whole body down. You know, maximizing all of those particulars. Okay. So the elbow movement, you sink the chest. Is that accomplished from the back or the front to the back? If you're talking about tun and to, right? This, here like this, it's scapular retraction, right? Okay. Identify what's moving there, okay? Now, are you using your chest to do this? Of course you are. That's the way your body works, right? Remember, when you move in any direction, in any plane of movement, there is stuff happening in both. Okay? So when I do this, this has to contract while this relaxes. This must shorten while this extends. Okay? That thing in your body is called reciprocal inhibition. When one muscle or muscle group is being activated and being recruited to a certain level. The antagonist of that particular muscle group then is inhibited and then relaxes, right? And that's what causes, or it makes possible all movement. So kind of think of it that way, right? You have a yin and you have a yang side to every movement, okay? So is it going from front to the back or back to the front? Yes. All right? Here, here. Now remember, you're not doing anything with the spine. The danger is that instead of doing this, you're going to do this, right? We don't want that. We want this, okay? You see? So my shoulder blades are moving, right? And they're staying right against my back, right? Okay. Okay, so Fanzi, last one. This happens to be my favorite. There's a lot of mystery with Fanzi. Fanzi is a very practical exercise, and yet it has a lot of mystique to it. It has a lot of history. It also has a lot of names. They used to call it Ba Shan Feng. They used to call it lots of different things. And then you can pick out different little things in there. It is one of the other arts. Qi Ji Guang's writings are famous for having the names of the Tai Chi movements in his list of exercises, barehanded exercises. There are other arts that are represented in those names. Like there's some Tai Chi names, and then there's some names that don't appear in Tai Chi, but appear in different arts. One of these things is one of our stances is almost directly taken from that, and that's in Fanzi. We call it Qi Go Shi, and that is the basic ready stance for Fanzi. It's a very low horse stance. Can be twisted into a bit of a kneeling stance, but at the beginning, make it a nice horse stance. You're going to bring your fists here to your center, like this, and push them out. This is incidentally very much like old style boxing or pugilism. There is in fact a style which uses a very similar hand position to this. But it had all the same purposes: keeping the person away, making sure that you can hit, and all that kind of stuff. Now, this is almost Fanzi is considered Duanda in most cases, meaning the hits are short, they're very very small. In other styles of Fanzi and Shoujiao, they have had a technique called Sunshou, which means inch hand, and this is essentially the 1-inch punch made famous by Bruce Lee. But again, we call it Sunshou, right? Inch hand. Whatever. That's the whole point. Is it's very closed, or very close, right? Or here like this. So a lot of the combinations look very much like boxing. They can be brought directly in there. All that kind of thing. Qi Go Shi. To see it, when we start out, it starts off every one, and it's pretty much the signature move of Fanzi, right? Okay, you've probably seen that in some, in some performances or what have you. Somebody down there like that, fists up here like that, okay? Fanzi is very, very fast. And that's another reason why short energy. We're trying to just pop, 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 pop. Okay? The term Fanzi refers to a flat thing flipping like this. Right? And that's kind of the idea. The idea is that you're flipping kind of back and forth, back and forth. You can think about the limbs of the body being planes that you're flipping over to get particular movements out of there are movements that you build up to getting those. So if we look at it, the first set, you start out here. There. There. You're not going to do that right out of the gate. Okay. The hitting 8, hitting 6 can be tricky. Okay. So we have other things that build up to it. So in the Jiaofa, we have an exercise which is Gunbu circle hit, okay, which is essentially like a hook, okay. So to do that exercise, we start with Gunbei again. So we step out, down, okay. Now we're going to stand up. We're going to take one step here. You see, we bring this knee up, and then we're going to circle hit here. Here's where we're going to use the tun. Okay? So as I'm here, and I walk around, right? Now, after we do that, okay, so we're up here. We're going to step down. 1, 2. Move the other way. You see? And then circle hit. Step down. 1, 2. Okay? Fairly simple. Boom. Whoa. Okay? That gives you that kind of flavor, right? Coming in, hit, hit, hit. Okay? Get away. If you tighten that up, you're in here. Okay? With this one. There's that hook. Twin. You see? All of that kind of coming together. Fanza, Baji, Piqua, the way it's taught here, all of them feed into each other. So you reach a little bit of a impasse on Fanza, go to something else, right? Depends on what you're having. If you're having problems with movement, you're not getting through it, your fitness level maybe a little bit down, especially after this ordeal, okay? Do a little piqua, build up that stamina, right? Put a little challenge there, okay? Piqua is easier to do when you're tired because such long motions. You can just slow down here a little bit. But you don't have to alter them as much. So that's what's nice about that. Okay, so that is a little thing of the big three. Let's see if we have any other comments or questions here. Give people a little bit of time. Oh, yes. So, animal forms. This comes up in imitation forms. Now, I used to do monkey and drunken. So, these are the most, or as we say, imitative or silly martial arts, I guess. Right? They're definitely abstract. They're definitely um, hard to see how they would be used specifically. But you have the same ideas that you have with some of these. Like, you very rarely find monkey style taught by itself. You very rarely find drunken style taught by itself. And even nowadays, if you do, it's probably built up from other stuff, right? You're going to be bringing in material. There's just not that much to do in those two things that's, different than your basics. You're going to need all of your basics for punching, kicking, falling, rolling, all of that for either of those methods. Now, monkey is, generally speaking, obviously, because it's a very small, animal or whatever, tends to try to get in tight, right? Now, the sets that we do in monkey are very acrobatic. They do all this stuff to look like a monkey and all of that kind of stuff. And that obviously is just for fitness and coordination and all that great stuff, right? But the real strength of the style is in a kind of wrestling and a grappling, right? But also in a very protective type of fight stance. You have a whole lot of these motions, right, with monkey, right? And those are just mimicked in your dodges and all that stuff, and how to keep people off of your head. Now, the question comes: why not just practice this and everything like that? Sure, why not? If you do it, if that's the way you want to do it, that's the way you want to do it. Great, right? Probably has something to do, depending on what time period you're talking about, with some other factor other than the martial arts. That way, either I just want to do something fun. I don't want to feel like I'm working so hard, right? And that's one of the things that's great about monkey, is that when you do monkey, it's just basically like a way to do a whole bunch of push-ups without having to do any push-ups, right? Because you're constantly walking on all fours and catching yourself and doing all kinds of stuff like that. So there's that. Now, monkey, drunken, eagle, all these kinds of things will often be paired with other sets in a system, right? And this comes to the very specific point of Tongbei. Tongbei means through cultivation and through preparation, through everything, right? So the material in it is all meant to prepare the practitioner for a large, if not infinite, set of variables, okay, and contexts and situations. Baji, very powerful, right? And this is a style in and of itself. People practice it all the time. It doesn't possess the joint manipulation, all of those types of things that Pigua has, and it doesn't possess the speed that Fanzi trains. Okay, putting these 3, 4, whatever things together creates a more rounded system. It's like, okay, so I'm not getting this here, but I'll get it here, right? And you'll kind of piece them together. Lots of Chinese martial arts actually work that way. Many arts that are paired with each other traditionally, whether it's just between two teachers being friends and exchanging techniques and stuff like that, or if it's two methods from the same source, that now have kind of split off from each other. There's lots of that stuff there. Xingyi, Bagua, Taiji, they're kind of in together, and a lot of people say they have the same ideas, right? And people will put analogous things to it. The point is that it's rare to find a system that is necessarily complete, right? Everybody's adding to their thing, and that's why you're going to have similarities in styles, but you're also going to have differences within that style, right? you just have to identify what are the skills that you need and train for those. Okay. Right. So, Fanza, in this vein, the arts that go together. Like, there are many people who like laud these relationships. These relationships don't necessarily actually exist. They are kind of brought up. Like I said, sometimes it's two teachers who are friends with each other, and all of that. Now, with all of these things that are brought in there, some people say, yeah, Fanza and Choujiao fit together. Okay. Probably the reason they say that is because very often these two arts are trained together. There is actually a style called Fanza Choujiao, or Choujiao Fanza, whichever direction you want to do it. That is, it's got Choujiao and it's got Fanza. Now the Fanza looks different than ours, but it is, same ideas. And that's just one style. So you do Choujiao, you do that. Then they say Baji and Pigua fit together. Again, you have many of the same people, that are teaching, crossed over. Really, what you do find, though, is ever since these three things were brought together, is you really see the three of them together, right? You see Fanza, Baji, and Pigua together more often than you even see Choujiao included in that thing. To my mind. Now, I don't live in China. I don't know. I don't have all of that kind of stuff. This is just from my, rather limited experience and perspective, stuff like that. That would be my guess, is that these associations are not necessarily meaningful associations. Very much like the Singyi Bagua connection is just because these people train together, right? And there you go. A lot of people throw Taiji in there, all of that kind of thing. And again, these people all kind of hung around with each other. When you have something like this kind of split up, you have the same circles, and they kind of meet each other. Now, I'm not schooled on the actual day-to-day history of Pigua, Baji, and all that kind of thing, but I do know that the places that they exist, in our system. I see, lots of people. Now, a teacher named Adam Su kind of brought Baji, Pigua to the forefront over here. And he is from a school which only does Baji and Pigua, and then Taiji and stuff like that. The Wutan, not Wutan, Wutan, out of Taiwan. Several different people from that lineage or whatever. That may, and they talk about the relationship between their Pigua and their Baji. It's not necessarily the same as Manshu Tongbei, nor is the Baji that's practiced by itself. But there is a lot of back and forth and cross-pollination and stuff like that. Choujiao is definitely a lesser known, lesser practiced type of art. Again, it's kicking, so there's a lot of that, and you'll see it pop up, but it's not as core to a to being well-rounded as these. The three, Pigua, Baji, Fanza, all deal with very specific and very important processes in the body and movements that are used in fighting. And of those, you can pontificate on these and expand them very well. It's not as easy to do with Choujiao since you are kicking. Kicking is a limited, more specialized skill. So there you go. For example, although I know Choujiao, I can't really say other than the throws that I've ever used it in a live match. Just because. That's not that's not how I fight. So, oh well. Anyway, so that would be my answer to that. I don't know if it's a definitive answer or if it's just what have you. But that's kind of how it is. So in Mashatong Bay, the big three are really together. Other stuff tends to be like Tantoi Chojiao tend to be in the Tongbei studies. There are other Taizu comes into it, as I said, mantis hands, and, that kind of thing. So you have a whole lot of stuff. Yeah. Remember too that a lot of the Masa Tongbei, especially the stuff that I will show you, eventually pollinated modern Wushu. Modern Wushu being based a lot on the teachings of Ma Shenda, and Ma Shenda taught a lot of Fanzi, a lot of Baji to a lot of the people. So that got interjected a lot into Northern martial arts through that. So people have seen it from those things. Okay. All right. So let's see if we have any other correspondences anywhere. Don't see anything at the moment. Nothing else on the tubes. So I guess we will start wrapping it up here for the evening. So yeah, there you go. That's just a little, overview of the stuff that we do. And Masa Tongbei, again, it's a ridiculously oversimplified sample. Just to get people in. I'll probably write some stuff up on the blog. I haven't done anything on the blog in a while because all of this is so crazy. But more blog posts coming. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's it for me. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Said Clonus Fon, for asking some questions and helping us fill out the space a little bit. Sword Lab is tomorrow. We will be doing two-handed Chinese sword. So we'll be looking at that. And hope to see you then. Until next time, we'll see you. Practice patience, perseverance, or patience, practice, perseverance. Happy Saber.